What's up, guys? This sport is fun. It's ever changing. But I got to say that for Penn State fans today, the sport has taken away. And all right, guys. So Manny Diaz is now slated to be the head coach at Duke. Very interesting fit for Manny Diaz. I mean, Manny Diaz spent a long time in Miami. He spent a long time with Dan Mullen at Mississippi State, cut his teeth there. He's been a very successful defensive coordinator. He was successful at Miami as a defensive coordinator and at Mississippi State. And now the Penn State defense this year was a really, really successful unit. Penn State's defense pretty much, kept the team at a 10-2 record. They played well in the Michigan game against Ohio State. They answered the bell at every call. You have Abdul Carter that is now going to be slated to be a junior. He could maybe be a first-round pick in the NFL. Just really good linebacker play and really good defensive line play, I would say, this year for Penn State. So Manny Diaz beat out Jim Knowles for this Duke job, all right? And very interesting choice of action by Manny Diaz, I will say. So there's a lot of hires that I've really liked this cycle. The majority of hires I've understood. Some have just been incredible Grand Slam hires. For Duke and Manny Diaz, this fit to me is not the perfect fit. Now, at Duke, it's very hard to win big anyway because your academic standards are so rigid. Your NIL is not to the level of Florida State, Miami, South Carolina, all the schools, in your conference and in your region. All right, so it's really a developmental program. And Manny Diaz has always won on the recruiting trail. I think that he's been an excellent recruiter. He's worked well with star players. And he's always worked in kind of a booming metropolitan city. We're talking about Miami. We're talking about, he's from Miami originally. So I guess you could say Starkville and also Penn State. But those, I guess, in the college football landscape, Penn State is an exceptional recruiting base, okay? Because when you're at Penn State, all the DC kids, all the Pittsburgh kids, and all of the Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, and Philly kids, they all want to go to Penn State. So at Duke, Manny Diaz is now taking on a challenge that he hasn't had to face in probably a decade plus when he was at Mississippi State. He's now going to be a head coach, and he's now going to be developing three-star talent, and he's working with a limited field. So is Manny Diaz going to be patient in this role? Is he going to enjoy this role? Because Manny Diaz, again, he took the Temple job for a day and then famously went back home to Miami. Is he going to be patient enough at Duke? Is it going to be a fit? And for Manny Diaz, honestly, what I would have told him is you're in the catbird seat at Penn State. You can get Micah Parsons level players at Penn State. You can get great defensive ends, linebackers. Joey Porter is, a cornerback who went to Penn State. That's a high draft pick. You can get your pick of the litter on the East Coast. And now you're going to now the Big Ten is expanding, and your name, you're just starting to gain acclaim again. You got let go of Miami. You landed in a great spot. You could land an SEC job. You could be in the mix for an SEC job. One could come open, all right? Like, say Florida, the University of Florida has another bad season. Say that Arkansas doesn't work out. Say South Carolina is not, does not win 7 or 8 games next year. Baylor is a better recruiting ground than Duke. So is this an impulsive move by Manny Diaz? Because now with this offense gaining another year of Drew Aller, Penn State could really be a national contender. And I thought that Manny Diaz really enjoyed being a D coordinator, loved Penn State. He probably did. It's an interesting opportunity. It's a pay raise. It's a head coaching job in the ACC. So I understand all of that. But does he want to be the long-term coach in Durham? Because I think that Manny Diaz wants to slug it out with the big dogs on the recruiting trail for 4- and 5-star talent. That's what I thought that Manny Diaz, that's where I thought he would thrive, not at a very academically rigorous place like Duke. But, so that's why I'm curious about the fit, and I don't know if it will be a long-term fit. I think Manny will look to move on, or Duke. It's just a very tough job. Mike Elko was stable and won 9 and 10 games. Is Manny Diaz in Miami? Manny Diaz, I know it was his first coaching job, but it wasn't the most stable in terms of recruits, in terms of building a program. Can Manny build the program? Great defensive mind. Thought that he could even use maybe 3 more years at Penn State or 2, and then he could have landed a real top-tier job. So that's just my honest opinion on Duke and Manny Diaz, okay? So I don't want to be all sunshine and rainbows because I've realized a lot of my opinions have been just that, but I'm going to tell you honestly kind of how I view the fit and things of that nature. They were going after Jim Knowles as well. For Duke, it's a decent hire. Guy definitely knows defense. Guy kind of knows what he's doing. But for Duke, is he going to be stable? Is this going to be a stable landing spot for Manny and for Duke? Disappointing for Penn State for sure. But again, we're going to review who the candidates could be for this job. There are so many good candidates that are out there. Group of 5 and Power 5 defensive coordinators that are really going to be interested in this job. Penn State's, again, it is a great position to be the defensive coordinator at Penn State. You usually land big-time jobs. You know, Brent Pry and Virginia Tech, I know that Virginia Tech hasn't won of late. I know that it's a tougher job nowadays than it was maybe 20 years ago, but Brent Pry grew up in Virginia. He was a GA at Virginia Tech. I viewed the job a little bit differently than I view the Manny Diaz going to Duke. But it is in the ACC. It is a head coaching job. Okay, it is a pay raise, so you could see the benefits to it as well. But again, are all of these coaching hires going to work out splendidly? Again, we'll see. I just think Manny could have waited and even gotten a better job. So tough for Penn State fans. For Duke, it will be interesting to see what happens. Okay, he probably is better even than a Jim Knowles. And interestingly enough, sometimes going super young at a place that's like that is really, really hard to recruit, sometimes that can really blow up in your face and not work out to the greatest of your abilities. Alrighty, guys, so that is that. Manny Diaz. It's going to be interesting now. Huge opening now at Penn State. They've had to replace their offensive coordinator. They have no defensive coordinator. It's right in transfer portal season. This sport, bam, you got to be on top of it this time of year.